I have to do it. I'm gonna have to do it. I mean, it was coming to this. This is gonna be a long video. And a lot of people are probably gonna be like, they're gonna have, I can imagine a lot of people are gonna have a lot to say about this particular video because I haven't done anything, I haven't talked about really anything apart from Spangle that's definitive in the sense of Goa yet. Can't really say Spangle was Goa. Sort of. So I'm going to have to center myself. I'm going to have to drink a lot of coffee and probably get a vape. So just bear with me, okay? Because I've got 3 pages of notes to talk about this one particular album that pretty much ended it. It did. It ended it. After this, Goa was over. I mean, absolutely over. What came before led up to it, and what came after wasn't anything like it because it couldn't be. And you might sense my reluctance to continue. And I am reluctant to continue. But I gotta talk about it. This is it. This is when Goa Trance was done. After this. IFO by Pleiadians. After this, it doesn't get any better than this. What's up, Dup? Say hi, Dup. Even Dup knows. As soon as I picked it up, he was like, "Oh, you got IFO? That's when Goa ended." See, even dogs know. And dogs can look up, by the way. Okay, let's talk about it. And I apologize, by the way, just for probably repeating myself when I talk about this. We gotta talk about it because this is genre defining. Period. I mean, I wish I could end the conversation now. You know, there's been a lot of talk about this particular album. People are divided by it. You know, it's the one that people say, yeah, this is it, or they say, no, absolutely not, absolutely not. You know, you could say that this ushered in the psytrance era because after this, there couldn't be any more Goa Trance. There just couldn't be. I mean, this album was so well done, so well put together, that afterwards, this is about when you started to see the labels change, you know, when progressive and psytrance and highcore, or whatever the hell it's called, started to, come into its own. Released in 1997 on Dragonfly Records. The 4 original people of Etnica, also known as Pleiadians, Max Lanfranconi, Andrea Rizzo, Carlo Paterno, and Jesus Christ. No, not Jesus. One more person whose name is escaping me. Maurizio Bugatti, Carlo Paterno, Andrea Rizzo, and Max Lanfranconi. There they are. It's like Goa and Psy, kind of, but it's really more alien Goa, you know. It's like what if aliens, if they made trance, what would it sound like? It would sound like this, you know. I mean, and these are the Italians here. These aren't the Brits. These aren't the Danes. This isn't the Germans. Okay, these are Italians, you know. And if you've ever watched an Italian protest, Italians don't fuck around. Italians will tell you like it is, and that's what this album is doing. Why is it called Pleiadians? Well, here's a Discogs quote. Pleiadians was created upon request from a certain label as they didn't like the idea of the band releasing material with another label. End quote. And whatever label that was, I don't know. Maybe it was Dragonfly, maybe it was another label. I don't know what label it was. To the band, Ethnica and Pleiadians was pretty much the same thing, as far as I can tell. Up until the second album, it was the full band. Carlo left in 1998, Andrea left in 1999, and I believe 99 is when Family of Light was released. And that album is okay. It's a little forced, but it's alright. We're talking very heavy, very psychedelic, driving, alien Goa here. Very deep, it's very intense. It balances both harsh melodic and hard driving trance sound is what's going on with this one. The takeaway here is the layering. I mean, there is. I mean, this album is a lesson in skillful layering of sound. I mean, it blends synth lines, bass lines, melodic yet mayhemic psychedelic background soundscapes. I mean, there is almost no room for anything else in the sonic spectrum in these tracks. I mean, it's completely full of madness, but at the same time is so cohesive. You know, this isn't like Doof. It's not like Simon. It's not like Man with No Name. Okay, there is balance in the Force, young Skywalker, with this album. It's, you know, it's a dark place to have balance in the Force, but the balance is there. I mean, it's unforgiving. It really is unforgiving. This music will force you to question what you know about psychedelic music. You know, who was it? Plato. Somebody like him said that the only, you know, the way to qualify or to quantify what you know is based on what you don't know. You know, and everything you think you know about Goa Trance and psychedelic music, up until hearing this, I mean, everyone's got their own taste. I understand that. Everyone's got their own taste, but you have to look at things. What's up? You have to look at things in terms of what it did for the genre, what it did for the movement, and in terms of what happened on this album. It is so well done that the genre was over after this. It was literally over and done with. Goa was over after this. Their earliest 12-inch was on Symbiosis. It was the Pleiadians boarding past a ballon on the Symbiosis, if I didn't just say that. And that one's okay. It's not bad. It's early, you know. In my opinion, their most notable 12 inches singles was the Pleiadians EP on Flying Rhino, the Jungle tracks, and what's the other track on it? I can't remember. The orange one. That's just fantastic. It's fantastic. And I'm going to put the Headspin 12-inch, the Universe 13 12-inch in there too. Not necessarily the two best tracks on the Family of Light album. You know, I would have liked to have seen Modulation on there, you know, because those timpani drums that are on there, just like, I never heard timpani drums on anything before that, you know. I mean, that's really amazing. Like I said, these guys are also known as Ethnica, which is more of like a party sound, you know. Ethnic is still happening. They're still going. You know, they kept the cheese to a certain degree. I mean, listen to Vimana. You know, it's talking about. It's all. I mean, like, what drives a track like Vimana? It's not the music. It's the samples. You know, and when the samples drive the track, especially spoken word samples, that's cheese. You know, that's tongue in cheek. That's cheese. And you know, that stuff's not bad. You know, like if you're at a party and you're tripping your head off, you don't really care what's playing. Not really. I mean, and that must be why Goa Gill was so popular. Is because people were just probably frying their heads off listening to him play. And he played a lot of good music. You know, I mean, I have some Goa Gill mixtapes from live sets, and they're just awful. I mean, as a DJ, those tapes are the mixes are just train wreck after train wreck. You know, they're not mixed well. He didn't. I mean, maybe he was tired. He plays like, you know, for days. You know, which is just stupid. I mean, come on. You know, I mean. That's just you know, that's just biologically stupid to do that to yourself, you know, to play for days. You know, I do a vinyl DJ set for 2 hours and I'm tired. You know, halfway through, I'm ready to sit down. My back hurts, you know. He's probably drinking Monster the whole time, Red Bull. So let's talk about the music. Let's talk about what makes this so definitive. I told you I was going to vape. The synth leads change often. The bass lines change. Sometimes the synth lines and the bass lines merge with each other and they're playing the same pattern, which is interesting. I like that. Especially for a track like Marope, which in my opinion was my favorite because it's the oddball track and it's the one that doesn't sound like any of the other ones on the album because it's the most alien one. The drums aren't necessarily the focus. The drums are great on this, on the beats, you know, are good and they do everything they need to do, but they're not the focus. The focus is the dark, melodic layering of synth lines and effects and soundscapes. This music sounds like it was made by aliens. It doesn't sound like it was made by people. I mean, if these people were abducted, if the 4 Pleiadians were abducted and they went on the spaceship and they went to the Taurus constellation and they came back and they wrote an album about their experience, then so be it, you know. Maybe they all had the same dream, you know, who knows. What kind of sounds, what kind of trance would aliens make? They'd make it, it would sound like this. This doesn't sound like something that people made, you know. And it's not uplifting either, you know. It's really more, dare I say, nighttime, but still not traditional sounding and not dark side, not that dark side crap, you know. I mean, what's dark side? Well, according to Wikipedia, dark side is considered to be underground, but has a huge following. Monotonous bass, many effects and higher tempos. The melodies are rare, instead melodic patterns are created by the effects and the weird sounds. That sounds boring as hell to me. Monotonous, machine gun bass, right? You know, it's just, I mean, where after this, after the complex layering in this album, where could you go after this, after something like this? You know, I mean, I'm gonna compare this to, now, excuse me, I'm gonna compare this to something in art that happened, all right? Right here, can't see it. Sorry, I'm trying to show it to you. This right here, 1912, Marcel Duchamp painted the nude descending the staircase. right? Which was, and if you know your art, this is cubist, okay? Cubism takes motion, it takes planes, and it distorts them all so that you get it's like if you took, for this particular painting, it's a figure walking down the staircase. It's almost like you took cells or I can't think of the word, or it's like if you took a film strip, and instead of looking at the whole film all in one motion, you pick it apart and you take pieces of each frame, is what I meant to say, and you put them all together so that you get this sort of fragmented view of motion. Okay, that's this album. Okay, after this painting, Cubism was done, right? Pablo Picasso was like, shit, what am I gonna do now, right? Beforehand it was Cubism was good. I mean, like, let's see, where's Guernica? I'm trying to find it. Or not that one, but this. Everyone's seen Picasso. Okay, here's Picasso, right? You can see distorted frames, not a whole lot of motion, but if you look at the figures, you see different sides. You see different parts of the whole, like a Gestalt effect, where the pieces add up to more than the whole of itself, right? And Duchamp wasn't even a cubist. He was in the Dada movement, the absurd shit, right? But I mean, after this painting, Cubism was over. You couldn't do better than that. That was it. That was as far as you could take it, right? And I mean, in the same year, we've got Gino Severini. Okay, look at this. All right, trying to show it to you. I have to stand up. God damn it! Look at how busy that is, right? This is Cubism too, but look at how busy this is. Look at how hard you have to look at everything that's going on. Look at all the motion in here. It's so distorted. You have to sit there and look at it. I mean, you could look at it briefly and go, okay, this is a group of people, perhaps a cafe or something like that. But it's a perfect example of what came before and what came after, right? This is Cubism, but it's post-Cubism, okay? This is like all the Goa Psytrance shit that tries to sound like Pleiadians after Pleiadians. This is like that Filteria shit, right? It's rehash. Once you've gone definitive and you've crossed the threshold, I mean, how can you come back from it? Yes, I do have an art degree. And that's what this album is. This album is the Marcel Duchamp Nude Descending a Staircase definitive Goa Trance album. After this, no. I mean, of course there's been other albums that were definitive too. You look at Twisted, you look at Astral Projection. In my opinion, Dancing Galaxy, stuff like that, that was like, nothing sounded, well, I don't know about that, but I mean, that was their best album, and that's a whole other rant for another time. But you look at something like this, for crying out loud, I mean, there is nothing better of its kind, and I just don't understand how people can say that this is overrated, I mean, if they say it's overrated, they're not getting it. Well, I'm going to take that back. I apologize. They're saying that they're not getting it. What I'm going to say is that it's not part of their taste, right? And they're just making the mistake of overlooking and not thinking critically about what the music has been doing in that short period of time that Goa Trance is being made, and what came after. Maybe they came into it later in the late 90s. It's got to be something like that, If you say that this is overrated, you're probably just your taste. It's probably just a matter of taste. You probably want the more melodic, uplifting stuff, and tracks like Liquid Sun and Mahadeva and Teleport and LSD, you know, are the ones that do it for you. You know, the dark, harsher, way above the waist shit like this isn't going to do it for you. You know, if you want, you know, it's easy to grab low-hanging fruit, sure, you know, and everyone's got their own taste, and I completely respect that. However, if you don't think critically about the kind of music that you like and you just like whatever, then you probably aren't very much of a critical thinker at all. And I'm not trying to offend anybody with that. It's just sort of a cognitive fact about people. You know, if you don't, I mean, if you like certain kinds of movies and you don't really know why, you should spend some time thinking about why. You know, if you just don't like scary movies because you don't like being scared, that's good enough for me. You know, if you don't like movies because they're old, then you're overlooking what was being done at the time, you know, for the time, at its time. At any rate, I keep talking about that Goa was over at the end of this, by the time this came out. Okay, another case in point, right? The Matsuri compilation, Let It Rip, alright? In the liner notes, it says something like, "Rest in peace, Princess Diana, William S. Burroughs, Mother Teresa, and Goa Trance." Okay, this was released in July 1997. Okay, which back then, production and mastering and all that shit took a while to do, and I'm sure it was circulating amongst the promoters, the label owners, and the people who were behind the curtain, so to speak. I'm sure that they had heard it, and were reflecting on its impact. Okay, Let It Rip came out 3 months later, in October of 1997. July, August, September, October. 3 months later, and Matsuri is saying, "It's over. We're going to call this compilation Let It Rip." And what's on Let It Rip? Not Goa Trance. It's a whole bunch of other stuff. It's like Jujuka and a weird Man-Made Man song and Alienated. All hail Alienated. God, I wish those guys were still making music. I mean, it's definitive. It's definitive. It is. You know, it's not terribly groovy, but it's danceable. If you're into that stuff, you know, I mean, it's not insane like Hallucinogen or Psycho Disco, which is just like, you know, the Twisted album is just, it's almost too hard to listen to. I remember when I heard Twisted for the first time, and I was a little disappointed, like, the fuck is this? You know, it almost was just too much. But when I heard this for the first time, you know, I really liked the uplifting shit too, you know. I loved the early doof, Man with No Name, astral projection stuff. It was great. I mean, I really liked that. I wanted to hear like happy melodies and stuff. But then I heard this, and this was all I listened to for like a solid year. Like I listened to this so much because I was picking it apart in my head. You know, I was trying to think about, well, why do I like it? Why am I so drawn to this sound? And it's because of the masterful, majestic, cohesive, complex layering in this album. And that is the takeaway. That is the takeaway about this album. And nobody else did it like this. Not before or since, you know. There's been too many imitations, you know, and since IFO, if people are going to do stuff like this, it's listed as Pleiadian style trance, Goa Trance, Psytrance. Which is, I mean, if that's not obvious enough for you, I don't know what is. Okay, I mean, I mean, later releases are again forced to conjure back the majesty of IFO. You know, they kind of don't, but they're just too homogenous. You know, and after, in my opinion, after Carlo and Andrea left the band, and we're just listening to Max and Maurizio, it just sounds to me like the all that who it sounds to me like, well, I'm gonna say that Carlo and Andrea probably were responsible for a lot of the cohesive, complex layering that you hear in this, and probably the early Etnica stuff too. You know, I'm gonna go ahead and just say that they were probably the ones who were doing that kind of programming in their software, in their sequencers, and in turn, what we get is like this memory. What came after is almost like a memory of the whole thing. It's like we remember it, and we want to try to keep this going. You know, kind of like that painting I showed you. You know, like it's post-cubism. After this, everything is post-Goa. Okay. I mean, if this ushered in psytrance, then so be it. But this, I can certainly tell you that this ushered in the end of Goa Trance. And I mean, there's been lots of remixes of classic Pleiadians tracks that are okay. You know, they're just, why take classic stuff? You know, it's like the way that Hollywood just reboots and rehashes shit. You know, like the Ghostbusters movie. You know, why take something that's classic? You know, if there, please shoot me in the face if there's ever a reboot of Lawrence of Arabia or Gone with the Wind or something like that. I mean, people like Morphic Resonance, Imaginarium, Etnica remixing Pleiadians, Pleiadians remixing Etnica, Species, X-Files, Predators, Omnivox. You know, I don't even pay attention to this stuff, you know, when they were doing it, those remixes, because this is all I needed to hear. This is all I needed to know about it. And is it high tech? Again, Wikipedia calls high tech or psytrance. I mean, they're sort of interchangeable. I don't really care. Characterized by arrangements of rhythms and layered melodies created by high tempo riffs. That sounds like this, right? But I mean, this is like Goa that sounds like Psy, or it could be like Psy that sounds like Goa, you know. And if that definition, it fits, you know. High tempo riffs, melodies, or not melodies, tempos, BPM, you know, arrangements of rhythms and layered melodies and structure. Okay, we're talking about structure here. We're talking about underlying effects and soundscapes. We're talking about the drums. We're talking about the bass lines, and then above that, you have all this room for how many synths and synth lines and background shit can you jam in there, without making it too much, without, you know, distortion, or without just making any one thing that's supposed to stand out more than any other thing be louder than the next one, or something like that. You know, who's in front singing, so to speak. Why does Darkside have such a large following? Well, that's because it's low-hanging fruit. It's low-hanging fruit, and that's the easiest to grab. And when people make a shit sandwich, everyone takes a bite. Darkside, this is the crap that was flushed down the pipe after Goa died. Okay, I mean, because people are still chasing the dragon, because the trip is over. The trip is over. Okay, and thank you, Ovni Moon Records, for hashing out junk that's just it's just homogenous. It's monotonous. It's not innovative. Okay, it's a memory. It's a memory of the good old times. It's a memory. It's a flashback. Okay, it's not the actual experience anymore because it's done. The trip is over. You're chasing the dragon. Dup. Come here, Dup. What do you think, Dup? You think it's over? Yeah, it's over. And excuse me for saying the dark side can kiss my fat ass. It can. Yeah, who's a buddy? I mean, after I heard this, I almost didn't want to listen to anything else because there was nothing else that was this good or this cohesive yet infuriating. You know, I played it for other people and they'd be like, put on Mahadeva, you know. Which I can understand. I like Mahadeva too. It has a very high ohm factor, you know, and that's what drives that track is the ohm factor, not the music, in my opinion. It's the ohm factor of it, you know. What came after, you know, if this ushered in the psytrance movement, genre, narrative, you know, then so be it. But in terms of something that is just so definitive, excuse me, and so defining, not to be redundant. I apologize at the beginning that I was probably going to repeat myself. Okay, so fair warning. I mean, what comes after is just like flashbacks, you know. There will never be another album like this, ever. You won't be able to do it again, you know. I mean, I just ripped on Omni Moon Records just a minute ago, and, you know, I'm not trying to piss anybody off, okay, but you're just chasing the dragon. You're chasing the dragon, okay, because, you know, it's like this whole movement was like a trip, you know. I mean, for crying out loud, 1993 to 1997, not even a decade, you know. I mean, and, you know, it seemed like a while, but it really wasn't. It was not. It was like, you know, 6 years or something. And that's it, you know. What came afterwards was just like the residue of it. Or the residue that was left over afterwards, you know. After Marcel Duchamp painted New Descending